They sat at the kitchen table, steam rising from 2 cups of tea. Lena finally began to talk. She'd worked at the hospital for years, proud of her job as a nurse. But last week, everything fell apart. Her home burned down in an electrical fire, and she'd been struggling ever since. Yet Daniel could tell she was still holding something back. A part of the story she couldn't bring herself to say. As the clock ticked past midnight, Daniel noticed a nervous glance toward her phone, which lay face down on the table. She flinched when it buzzed a number she didn't recognize flashing on the screen. He saw fear cross her face before she quickly turned it off. Emma stirred in the next room, calling softly for her dad. Daniel went to comfort her, but his mind stayed on Lena. Something didn't add up. He wanted to believe her story, but deep down, he sensed she was running from more than just a fire. And soon, the truth would come knocking. The next morning, Daniel woke up to the sound of muffled voices. He walked into the kitchen and found Lena pacing back and forth, whispering into her phone, her face pale and tense. When she saw him, she quickly hung up and tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. The baby started to cry again. As if sensing the unease in the room, Daniel wanted to ask what was going on, but something in her expression stopped him. Instead, he made breakfast in silence, his mind racing. Who had she been talking to so early in the morning? And why did she seem so afraid? The feeling that she was hiding something grew stronger by the minute. Later that day, a black car slowly drove past his house. Twice, Daniel noticed the driver glance toward the window before speeding off. When he turned to tell Lena, she froze, clutching her baby tighter. Her hands trembled so hard, the bottle almost slipped. "They found me," she whispered, her voice shaking. Daniel's stomach dropped. "Who?" he asked, but she didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the door, her eyes wide with panic. "I didn't mean to bring this here," she said softly. "I thought I could keep us safe for one night." The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows. Daniel realized whatever she was running from wasn't just her past, it was coming straight to his doorstep, and this time, none of them could run. Daniel's heart pounded as he peeked through the curtain. The black car had returned, idling at the corner of his street. He could barely make out the figure inside, but something about the way the headlights stayed fixed on the house sent a chill down his spine. Lena stood frozen, clutching her baby, her lips trembling. "I thought they wouldn't find me here," she whispered. Before Daniel could ask who they were, a loud knock shook the door. Emma ran out of her room, startled, and Daniel quickly motioned for her to stay quiet. The pounding grew more urgent, followed by a deep voice calling, "Miss Carter, we need to talk." Lena's face drained of color. She turned to Daniel, tears filling her eyes. "Please, don't let them take him." Daniel's confusion deepened. "Who are they, Lena? What's going on?" She hesitated, breathing hard, then finally confessed in a trembling voice. "The hospital wasn't just where I worked, it's where everything went wrong. I discovered something I shouldn't have. They're not after me for what I did, but for what I know." The baby began to cry again, echoing through the tense silence. Another knock followed, louder this time. Daniel's instincts screamed to protect them. Even though he didn't understand the danger, he quietly led Lena and the baby toward the back door, every step filled with uncertainty. But just as he turned the knob, the sound of breaking glass shattered. The air someone had already found another way in. The sound of shattering glass jolted Daniel into motion. He grabbed Emma's hand with one arm and pulled Lena and the baby toward the back hallway. Heavy footsteps echoed through the living room. Someone had broken in. The air grew thick with fear. Daniel's mind raced as he led them into the small storage room behind the kitchen, shutting the door softly. The baby whimpered, and Lena tried desperately to quiet him. Through the crack in the door, Daniel saw 2 men dressed in dark suits, moving through the house with flashlights. One of them spoke into a radio. "We're inside. She has the files." Lena's eyes widened, and she clutched her bag tightly. She whispered, "I copied medical records from the hospital, proof that they were selling patient drugs. I was going to take it to the police, but they found out." Daniel realized the danger they were in. Gathering his courage, he told Lena to stay put and slipped out quietly. He triggered his car alarm outside, drawing the men's attention. As they rushed toward the noise, Daniel grabbed Lena's hand and whispered, "Now." They ran through the rain toward the old barn behind the house. Just as they reached the door, flashing red and blue lights filled the night. Police cars screeched to a stop. One of the men shouted. She called them, but Lena shook her head, stunned. Daniel turned to her, breathless. "I didn't call anyone." From behind the police lights, a familiar figure stepped out. It was Daniel's late wife's brother, an undercover detective. "We've been tracking them for weeks," he said. "You led us right to them." The flashing lights slowly faded into the misty night as officers led the men away in handcuffs. Lena stood frozen, clutching her baby, barely able to believe it was finally over. Daniel's brother-in-law approached her gently, explaining how the police had been following the same criminal network for months and her stolen hospital files were the missing link that tied everything together. Relief washed over her face, mixed with quiet disbelief. For the first time in weeks, she didn't feel like she had to run. Daniel's daughter, Emma, peeked from behind the barn door, her small voice breaking the silence. "Daddy, is she okay?" Daniel smiled softly, kneeling beside her. "Yes, sweetheart, she's safe now." Lena's eyes filled with tears at the warmth in his voice, the kind she hadn't felt in a long time. Over the next few days, Lena stayed with Daniel and Emma until the police found her a safe place to start over. The baby began to smile again, and Lena found herself laughing for the first time since her world had fallen apart. Before leaving, she turned to Daniel and said quietly, "You didn't just save. Usu reminded me that there's still good people out there." Daniel watched her drive away. The morning sun breaking through the clouds, he felt something shift inside him, a reminder that even the darkest nights can lead to unexpected hope. Sometimes, strangers cross our paths for a reason, carrying lessons we never knew we needed, right when we need them most. The rain poured down in heavy sheets, drumming against the quiet streets of a small town just past midnight. Daniel, a single dad heading home from his late shift, squinted through the windshield, his wipers fighting to keep up. His 5-year-old daughter slept in the back seat, her tiny hand clutching a worn-out teddy bear. Just as he turned the corner near the old hospital, he saw something that made his heart stop. A woman standing in the rain, clutching a baby close to her chest. She wasn't moving, just staring blankly at the ground, soaked to the bone. He pulled over instantly. When he stepped out, he could see she was a nurse, her uniform clinging to her trembling frame. The baby in her arms let out a faint cry, and she tried to hush it, though her own tears mixed with the rain. "Are you okay?" Daniel called out, but she didn't answer right away. There was something in her eyes, something between exhaustion and heartbreak. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. I have nowhere to go." Daniel didn't know who she was or what had happened, but something deep inside told him this night would change everything for both of them. As lightning flashed behind her, revealing the hospital badge still pinned to her chest, he realized this wasn't just a stranger in trouble. It was a woman who had lost everything, except hope. Daniel stood there, unsure of what to say next. The woman looked fragile, her hands trembling as she tried to keep the baby warm beneath her soaked jacket. He could see the hospital name tag, Lena. Her eyes darted around as if afraid someone might see her. Daniel offered his coat and helped her and the baby into his car. The warmth of the heater slowly filled the silence, but questions hung heavy in the air. Lena kept staring out the window, lost in thought. The baby whimpered softly, and Daniel could see she was running on pure exhaustion. Finally, he asked gently, "Do you have someone I can call?" She shook her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. "No one. Not anymore," she whispered. Daniel didn't press further, but he couldn't stop wondering what had driven a nurse, woman who clearly cared for others, to be standing out in the rain with nowhere to go. She looked like someone who had carried the weight of the world, and finally collapsed under it. As they drove through the quiet streets, lightning flickered again, reflecting off the tear tracks on her face. She held her baby tighter, almost protectively, as if afraid someone might take him away. Daniel sensed there was more to her story, something painful and complicated, and even though they had just met, he felt an unexplainable pull to help her. He didn't know it yet, but this unexpected encounter was about to turn both their lives upside down. Daniel led Lena and her baby into his small home, careful not to wake his daughter Emma. The old house smelled faintly of coffee and rain. He handed her a towel and some dry clothes that once belonged to his late wife. Lena hesitated, clutching her baby, but Daniel's calm voice somehow made her feel safe enough to accept. When she emerged from the bathroom, the baby asleep in her arms, her eyes looked softer, but still shadowed by something unspoken.